Are you the fanatic we're looking for? Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is the only interactive and dynamic mock draft simulator. Dynamic means that the picks from one mock draft will influence the players that team selects in the next mock draft. This can be done with a first-round challenge. This can be done with a second-round challenge. This will be done with any mock draft from the Draft Professor. In addition, the Draft Professor has rank players functionality, allowing you to rank players and build your own big board and then compare your board to that of other users at the Draft Professor. In addition, the Draft Professor has draft a team functionality. This allows 2 or more users to snake draft a team of 22 players from the rookie pool, and then you can debate which players you like at which position and why. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am joined by Randall and Jacob. How you guys doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Good to be back. Ready to talk some next year quarterbacks. How about you, Jacob?
Yeah, the mustache is mustaching. So
it is.
And I went ahead and cut my hair so that more attention would go to the mustache. So I'm doing great.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a really long time since I saw both of you because Christmas and New Year's fell on a Wednesday. So it feels like I haven't seen you guys in a month.
I know.
So welcome back. So for Quarterbacks Week, we're taking some time to go over the 2026 and probably some of these guys will be 2027 quarterbacks. But just to kind of level set as to, is the next year's quarterback class going to be better? And then here's the other thing, is that how reliably can a team tank to get one of these guys? Because, I did not have the Denver Broncos making the playoffs in my bingo card. I would have had the Broncos drafting in the top 10 this year. And some of us may have even said that about the Vikings. Right? They had 3 losses, right? Yeah. So I think part of the discussion is also how reliable is tanking.
If you fail at tanking, it's a little bit of a good thing on some aspect of it, right? You're looking at Minnesota. Minnesota was a little bit more in the cards because you're looking at Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, and Sam Darnold was that guy coming out sort of thing. So just had to piece it together and have somebody like KOC.
Yeah, and they also were in that spot where they took the quarterback that they thought was going to be that guy in JJ, and he gets hurt and whatnot. So it was like they already, the thing that you would tank for, they already have before Sam Darnold does what Sam Darnold does. But, how many people think they were going to tank after JJ goes down and just get an elite playmaker for JJ or whatever, something of that nature. And then all of a sudden it's just like, hey, yeah, by the way, now you have a problem. You have too many quarterbacks. And it's like, oh God, that's not a problem.
Yeah, no kidding. What Quessie's got drafted 0 Pro Bowlers, and they are, one of the best records in the NFC. So kudos to him taking over, being, a cap guru and a kind of just GM guru at that.
Really?
Yeah.
Cleveland Brown exec.
So, Randall, how many of these guys that you see on the list do you think would go round 1 in next year's draft?
Ooh. All right. So, round 1, I definitely Nuss. I will go Nuss, Allar. I have a high upside on Cade Klubnick, so I will go Klubnick. And I think a sneaky one that can get in there is Sam Levitt. I think he's very underrated going into next year. I do believe there are some quarterbacks there that can be better at their college year next year, but will stay till 2027.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and Jacob, how about you? Who do you think on this list is a number 1 quarterback? A first-round quarterback next year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on the first three for sure. Klubnick, I like. Klubnick's really interesting because you're talking about a dude similar with Allar there at 2. The tools are there. Klubnick's got the tools to be like maybe the best guy in that class if it all comes together and he develops. He looked better under pressure as the year went on and stuff, and a lot of that stuff's just playing football, and he's going to do more of that and get more of it. But like his upside tools are really, really good, so I think he sneaks in there. I do think Arch goes back. There's this like thing about the Mannings wanting to do all 4 years and things of that nature. So I wonder if it just depends on like, what if the guys ahead of him are bad and he's the only good one? That kind of thing. Like maybe he squeaks himself in there. He's got the talent to be there. But I would say safely as I sit right here, I would say that 3 for sure. I do like Levitt because I think Levitt's scrappy. I love the way that dude competes. You can smack him around all day, and he's just Scadaboo does the same thing. He's got that. It's like that whole team has got that mentality, and he's a little undersized, but like you wouldn't know it the way he plays. Like it just plays his tail off. But Nico, and I won't try it. You guys taught me how to say it. Not even going to try it because I'm not going to be able to say it. But Nico at Tennessee, I think that's my dark horse if he were to come out in 26 as potentially a 4th or 5th guy to sneak into that round. Like I think there's talented enough guys to rival last year's quarterback class if it all comes together.
So here's here's kind of like where I a little bit disagree with you with Nico Iamaleava, I believe. Is I think he needs to put a lot together. I think his size is there. 6'6", 215 is incredible. He's got speed. He's got explosiveness. He's got a lot to work on. His deep shots are probably the one thing that kind of drive me a little crazy. Watching his tape, he's missing long shots by 3-4 yards sort of thing that he really needs to clean up because as a 6'6" dual threat guy, that deep shot needs to be accurate to be that much of a threat. He's got 3 interceptions from deep shots, and including when you go outside the numbers, he's throwing under 25% completion percentage. So long shot, if he gets that deep shot, then maybe a lot of that can open up. But right now, he's got to fine tune a lot of stuff to even consider for me for the first round.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fully fair. I think I'm just going for me, just on like, I guess, tools. That's kind of how I go into the season is I'm just like, hey, the tools are there. Do you need to make significant strides? Absolutely. Yeah. I did not realize the outside the numbers stuff was that bad.
Yeah, so, I mean, which I guess I'm going to be like hypocritical right now because I do agree with you on that where it should be all in the positive and that's what you got to work on because that's kind of where I'm at with Arch Manning, right? He's so raw. He's so raw as a quarterback. But then you have that last name Manning in your head and you're like, oh, well, when he gets a starting role, he's going to kill it for sure, right?
Yep.
So
it's deeper. Okay. Yeah.
I guess a couple of other comments. So Manning, Iamaleava, how well did I say that?
That was good.
And Sellers, a class of 2027, unless they were to declare early, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Correct. And that might be true for some other guys further down the list.
Yeah.
But wanted to point that out. But Randall, like, how do you want to like cover this? Are you going to go like through the guys one by one, or what was the point?
We can kind of go back and forth if we just want to quickly hit through the list. Is that what you're looking at, Jim, or did you want to jump around, talk about like you brought up LaNorris Sellers? We can kind of dive into him a little bit. Well, what are you feeling?
I was trying to do that as a summary.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure to what level of detail you guys were planning on covering any of the quarterbacks. I think the top 2 definitely deserve a lot of attention.
Yeah, let's talk about Nuss and Allar, and then we'll kind of jump into those other. But Nuss, so the good thing about us diving into those top 2 is I believe me and Jacob have them flipped because I have Garrett Nussmeier going in as my QB1. Jacob, I believe you have Allar up top on there. I love Garrett Nussmeier, and the reason I have him at the number 1 spot is his arm talent to make all the throws, his arm arrogance that he has, and his willingness to change his game plan throughout the kind of season. there was a game last year with Ole Miss, right? When you're going into the third and fourth quarter and they were down and they made that comeback. That was an air raid game, which was pretty insane, which is not typical of Nussmeier. But they looked, LSU gave him that opportunity. It was like, you got to air the ball out. He did it, and he kind of came through. And then you have those games where it's all short and intermediate or using those motions and stuff like that. So his willingness to be able to adapt to the game plan is why I have him at that number one. His pressure to sack percentage is under 10%. He's got 151 pressures with only 15 sacks, while his offensive line was not the greatest when you only have 2.67 seconds on an average time to throw. So his processing, footwork, and mechanics are good for the NFL. And then I think a little bit more experience coming into next year when he plays will be why he will be number one. What did you think about Garrett, Jacob?
I'm trying to I totally clicked off of it, but so for a lot of this year, I updated my quarterback rankings relatively fairly often, and Nuss was quarterback 3 for me for a lot of this season, for a lot of the reasons that you kind of talked about. The thing that kind of frustrated me with him and why I wanted him to go back initially was he can get frustrating with the type of risks that he was willing to take at times. And that goes into play the arm arrogance that you talked about. It's going to work. It worked out more than it hurt him this year, in my opinion. But there was enough there where I was like, you can be watch, but it was, and I'm not saying that he has the same build as this guy or that this is a pro comp, but as a Browns guy, I've watched a lot of Baker Mayfield, and I see some of that in the sense where Baker knows he can make all the throws. He knows it. And sometimes he just gets a little bit too confident in himself, and it's well, maybe you don't throw it into triple coverage. I know you can, but maybe there's a time and place for that. And that is probably those risks that he's willing to take, which I know pay off. That's why I flipped him to 2. Yeah. That's the difference for me, is I don't see Allar doing nearly as much of that this year. But I thought Nuss, especially as the year went on, I really love the way he can work through his progressions and identify coverage. If there's a busted coverage, he's going to find it. He is going to find it. He's going to he's a coach's son. He's a coach's son, and you see that. You're yep, there it is.
Absolutely. And then to piggyback off that, because you're 100% right, on a statistical standpoint, as he's accounted for 24 big-time throws, crucial clutch throws, tight window throws, and he accounts for 19 turnover-worthy plays. So the closer you get to that 1-to-1 ratio, it means you're a dangerous thrower, right? And you don't want to be in that boat. So that's what you just said. Even the stats match that up too. So 100% correct.
But the thing I love most about him is probably that he's tough as nails. Yeah. Dude, there was a point in I did a film cut up when I was ranking the tiers of quarterbacks before he had said he was going back and all that stuff. And I put it together with a friend of mine over at the OBR, and I just watched so many plays where you're he knows he's going to get his head taken off, and he's in the pocket. Sometimes he's scrambling and he knows he's rolling out to the right and things like that. And it's he'll take a lick right in the mouth. He'll pump right back up. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. And I can live with that, especially because I think he's got good size and toughness. That's just that's the difference to me. He goes back and he sees more coverages, and he understands that you can throw it in the dirt a little bit more, or, some things of that nature. Then I absolutely I want him and expect him to be a top 10 pick next year.
Yeah, agreed. And especially when he's tunnel vision on his first read, I think is where sometimes that comes across, where he should throw it in the dirt, because he is throwing into that triple coverage. If he sees zone and it's out towards the sideline, he'll still throw it because he thinks that the sideline's his friend, but then there's 3 guys around him and it's not going to work, sort of thing. So throw that away, or look at your second read. Do not just try and pin that right at your first read, because that's all you got.
Yeah. Yep.
And would you guys have Nussmeier and Allar as first-round picks if they were in this draft?
Yes. Yeah, I would take him right after Cam. Before Shedeur.
Probably because they both have they have tremendous upside. They have tremendous upside. They're toolsy. I wouldn't want to start them right away, probably. But yeah, like, I mean, I said this and I'll say it. I told you guys and I'm not even saying, like, I all along have thought both of them should go back to college. And there's a rumor that depending on how Penn State goes, that he might change his decision depending on how, Thursday's game and potentially a national championship, which I think he will be playing in. Some of that stuff coming up. He's from Medina. And if anybody knows where Medina is, that is Cleveland. And I would not be at all shocked if Cleveland were to take him if he changes his mind at 2.
Yeah, and I could see that as well. I would have both Allar and Nussmeier higher than Sanders.
I would, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He would be 2. Yeah, it would be 2-3, Allar, Nussmeier for me. Yep. I mean, that's where it'd be. And just so you know, I can show you the pictures of him in Cleveland Browns gear, but
And then I think the last thing that we should also point out is Nussmeier just finished his first year as a starting quarterback at LSU, right? So, even if we're saying, we're projecting his upside to be QB2 or QB3 this year if he came out, he was raw is probably the wrong term, but we'll just say inexperienced.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? Or not battle tested.
Battle tested. Yeah, battle tested is good.
Yep. Okay, so Randall, where to next?
Well, I believe now let's go with Jacob to flip it on Drew Allar and tell me, let us know why you have Allar higher.
I literally was just writing this up, and I'm just going to pull up what I wrote just so I can just be like, all right. So he's built in a lab to play quarterback is the first thing that jumps out at me. 6'5", around 240, ideal size, elite arm strength. I think he can launch the ball down the field with ease. Like it's there. Not just arm strength, but arm talent. It's all there. I think he gets a little bit like he can be clunky and whatnot. But I think for a guy that big, he moves better than people give him credit for. I think that not like Bo Prabula. Oh, I could say it right in my head, but they're back up at Penn State. He would come in to do a lot of the RPO run stuff and things like that because Allar's not like an elite athlete, but he can move and extend plays and do some things that you don't expect him to. And he's got the arm strength to make those throws on the run. The difficult throws that you have to do when you're he goes from a 59% completion percentage last year to a 67% this year. For a lot of this year, he had it up in the 70s. A 1.6% turnover worthy throw percentage this year. That's the biggest thing for me. That's the difference. I think he really still struggles. He completed like 44% of his passes under pressure. Not very good right there. The reading some things post snap, it's not there completely where you want it to be. And that's literally, I just think that comes from playing more football. I think if he even makes half the improvements next year that he did this year, he has everything he needs to be a perfect quarterback prospect. I'm not saying he's going to be there, but like it's all there, the height, the size, a little bit of mobility. He's like that Joe Flacco mobility where it's like you don't love it, but like it's not Peyton Manning.
Yeah, right.
It's somewhere in there. It's somewhere in between those two right there. But like he can make every single throw, and sometimes his accuracy gets away from him. And sometimes he's kind of streaky and you want him to kind of work those things over. But if he can level that out, be a little bit more consistent with some of his ball placement, it's all there.
Yeah, no, I very much agree. And you had the 20 big time throws versus the 7 turnover worthy plays. And that's what I love to see, kind of that metric as well. But yeah, I mean, you kind of pretty much nailed everything when it comes down to it. I really like how well he is pre snap. And especially with Penn State, with the amount of motion they do and stuff like that, it seems like he has such good confidence in what he's running at Penn State that he makes that offense so much better in his fluidity of it and how he knows exactly what to do and what he's looking for. I mean, he can work on some things like some accuracy and things along those lines, but like his slants, like when Penn State does his slants, they're top notch. You know, he's taking a quick 3-step drop, releasing it straight to the numbers, and then he's taking off, sort of thing. So he has that fluidity, that NFL fluidity to bring to it for the timing and things along the line that NFL uses. And that's probably my favorite thing about Drew Allar for sure. You are right. I think he sometimes gets a little nervous on pressure. He is big enough to avoid it. He had 135 pressures this year, only accounted for 18 sacks, so he knows how to get out of that. And when you're talking about that mobility, use Joe Flacco, and I kind of stayed in Pennsylvania because I've heard some people comp his style to like Josh Allen, and I don't think that's it at all. But I kind of recognize a little bit of a Big Ben, if you will, because he'll stay in the pocket. He'll stay in the pocket, and then if he has the contact balance behind the line of scrimmage to never fall down and keep his eyes on the field to throw the ball, sort of thing. So if he has 42 scrambles this year, when he's running to that right and he like has a guy coming on him, he could shed that blocker, but instead of running past the line of scrimmage, he'll look to throw it, sort of thing. And that's what Big Ben ended up doing, you know, in his later years, sort of thing. Never, ever fell to the ground and still got that touchdown throw, sort of thing. So I kind of saw that a little bit. I would like to see him work better under pressure, and you're right. I think it's just games played that can make him better at that. A lot of the times when he's on the run or if he's falling back, he doesn't really use his lower body for power and leverage, and he underthrows those balls when he's kind of leaning back. If he could just have somebody coach him into making sure that his back foot is planted to give that extra power to make sure he does not underthrow those balls. That's like the big thing that I saw out of him and more experience. But yeah, I mean, he's sitting there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I switch Allar, Nuss, or, you know, however that works out. LaNorris Sellers. I mean, this class is crazy. So this pre-QB, I would not be surprised if it flips its on his head in those rankings.
Yeah, he absolutely is at times just all arm throwing. Like it's just
right.
It's just all arm.
Yep, 100%. All right. Now we want to flip to Cade Klubnick.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Okay. With Cade, for me, I really liked and Nuss did some of this too, but I really liked watching his growth this year. I think you really got to see it. Kind of a slow start. Obviously, we all know how Clemson's season started against Georgia, and then and he finds a way to just kind of grit it out and battle and make the playoffs. He's got the arm talent and the arm strength. He's a plus athlete. I think he can really – I wouldn't call him like super dynamic. Like I'm not going to like get carried away and call him Lamar or anything of that nature, but like he's going to – if you underestimate his athleticism and his legs, he's going to make you regret that. I think he can absolutely do that. It's all about like some of the ball placement being inconsistent and things of that nature where I think he just, I don't know if it like, you know, sometimes you see guys that really need to understand better about velocity and touch and just kind of being able to do some of that stuff. I think sometimes he gets so ramped up that he just fires it too high, fires it too low, too wide. And it gives his guys opportunities to make plays, but it's just not, sometimes he makes the job more difficult on them. And I think I saw that get a lot better as the year goes on. But if he can like get that out on a steady pace, like he's got the arm strength, the arm talent. I thought he read defenses a lot better down the stretch. Like his confidence seemed a lot better down the stretch as it was kind of going on. And that's why I love the idea of him. You know, he was kind of like my dark horse. Like if he declared, I was like, this would be a guy that you take day 3, you stash him. And then like, you know, a couple like next year, you know, a year or two from now, like your veteran goes down. And then it's like, oh, here comes this dude, Cade Klubnick. What's he all about? And he just starts ripping it. And just you're like, oh my God. But
Gardner
like,
Minshew it sort of thing. Gardner Minshew
yeah.
Yeah.
Who the hell is this guy? Where'd he come from? But
Yeah,
like he's a really toolsy guy that just needs to put it together to kind of like figure some things out, like the intricacies of playing quarterback. But he's as toolsy as a guy you're going to find in college football, I think.
Yeah, you're definitely right. He has he does kind of go a little hyper, and you can tell that, especially when he breaks out of the pocket. I do like how he breaks out of the pocket. He's pretty twitchy and explosive. Instead, he's not much of a roller out of the back. He's more of a take a step in front of the pocket and then burst out sort of thing. And I kind of like that a little bit better, kind of opens it up. But when he does it, I mean, he's a good thrower on the run. He can kind of get that. I do agree that, that I kind of took away the first quarter of the season because I believe that he probably ascended the most out of the quarterbacks this year sort of thing, the way he started to the way he finished. I'd like to say that arguably he was the best player on the field during that Clemson-Texas game. He played very well. I posted a video on Twitter today where he hit that second level right over the hands of zone coverage, and it was a pretty ball. So I think he was the highest climber. I do have him as a sneaky Heisman watch for next year if he continues his ascension. I think he can be clean. Clemson's using the portal now, so I think they're going to be really good next year and stuff like that. So I think with Clemson being a good team, I think he has a chance to be in the Heisman watch as long as he ascends the way he did this year and he keeps kind of going. I do love Cade Klubnick. He's got a 2-to-1 big time throws to turnover worthy plays. His drop, 3-step drop is super quick, gets the ball out quick on slants and intermediates. He can work on deep shots, but overall, I think he's learning well, and I think he's starting to figure it out. So next year, that's why I have him. That's why I personally have him at the number 3 quarterback, is based on how well he's ascended, and I don't think it's going to stop personally.
Yep.
One thing he definitely does have to, which I just put on my last notes, definitely ball security. He has 9 fumbles this year. A lot of these quarterbacks need to work on ball security, but 9 fumbles is a little rough for Cade. So clean that up, and then you're looking good.
Yep.
All right. Should we talk about, who do you want to talk about first, Arch or Sam?
I don't have a lot on Arch just because, like, I haven't seen enough with it, but, like, it's really funny to see somebody with Manning on the back of their jersey move like that.
Yeah.
Like, the first, like, because I knew, the buzz about him when he gets to Texas, but that first time I actually saw him this year play in Scoot, I was like, oh, I just assumed he couldn't. Like, right. I just kind of, like, I went into that being like, oh, no, he's a Manning. But, like, it's like take the pocket passer that all the other Mannings were and make them a really good athlete. And that's what he looks like he can be. That's the trajectory. Like, operate in the pocket and break out of and do even design quarterback runs. And the thought of that being where he is right now and what he could be is it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, his rushing ability is the closest thing for me out of these quarterbacks to Josh Allen. The way he runs, he has that kind of that big body, and he kind of puts himself in big hits as well. He took a pretty big hit in the Mississippi State game where it was almost like helmet on helmet, and he picked back up and kind of enjoyed the hit sort of thing. But he's got 7 yards after contact per attempt. For a quarterback, that's relatively nuts, to be honest with you. So I see that rushing ability in Josh Allen. He's just raw. He's got to figure it out. The 2 games he started when Ewers was out, one was 52%, one was 84%. So it's really hard. It's really hard to evaluate that, right? But his mechanics remind me of Peyton Manning. They look good. He's got the Mannings with him. I assume he will ascend. Jim, what do you have to say? I apologize.
No, that's all right. Do you have Manning as 2026, 2027, or beyond?
I have 2027. I think firmly 2027. My personal opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm with you.
That was where I had, but just trying to keep track for those scoring at home. So.
Yeah. All right. You want to do? I'll start with Sam Leavitt. Yeah. Arizona State. He's
yeah.
a big sleeper as well. 6'2", 200 pounds. I'd like to see him gain a little bit of that weight in 200 pounds, to be honest. Matt Ryan's a good one. I had 28. Matt Ryan is a good one. I like that, and that's saying a lot. 2,800 yards. He had 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, which is impressive. Obviously, having Scadaboo, they didn't have to throw that much. He averaged like 26 throws a game, but his adjusted completion percentage was about 73%, and only having 6 interceptions and also have 0 fumbles. So crazy in ball security, even though you can see he's in like an explosive rusher. And I think, Jacob, you could agree when he's running, he's like super explosive, super efficient, and he finds seams in between defenders that a lot of quarterbacks don't go for, and he takes that chance. And when you look at what could be a 6-yard gain, turns into a 12 to 14-yard gain. I'm super impressed with his rushing ability. His passing's good. He can clean up some stuff, but he's a tough QB. He takes a lot of hits. When he throws the ball, he throws it with conviction, throws it hard, throws it right in the numbers sort of thing. His Kansas game was like one of my favorite things to watch. He threw an interception, which that he has 6 interceptions, should be 5, because he threw a deep shot about 55 yards right to the end zone, hit him right in the hands, dropped, and then ended up getting an interception at the 1-yard line. So that wasn't even his fault. I think with staying at Arizona State next year and figuring it out with extra experience next year, and maybe without Scadaboo, he'll have a little bit more responsibility, and then he can kind of climb those up. I have him as my 5 because I think he might stay at 5, and I just kind of have a lot of hope for him.
I thought one thing that I noticed, especially I think last year even and early this year as he was kind of developing a little bit, was I really like how in the situations where the defense gives it to him, he gets the ball out quick. Like in certain situations, he'll hold onto the ball, extend the play, things like that. But there was issues with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, a million issues with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. But one of the things was when there's an easy answer in front of you and the defense gives you an easy answer, take it. And he wasn't taking it. Sam Levitt doesn't have that issue. If you're like, hey, I'm going to give you the slant, he'll be like, okay. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'll pick you apart underneath. Oh, we'll give you the middle, intermediate middle. Okay, then I'll pick you apart in the intermediate middle, and I'll do what I need to do. He doesn't – you talk about the ball security. He just doesn't take unnecessary risks, which is very interesting for a guy that the biggest thing I love about him is this tough as nails attitude and confidence that he plays with, because a lot of those guys, the gunslinger-esque guys, they take risks. Mm-hmm. Levitt has a lot of that stuff without the risks, where it just doesn't feel like it. And he'll take risks. Like, I'm not saying there's none of them there. I just think he's really smart and efficient. And when you're talking about a guy that's only 200 pounds to take those shots and to get back up, it's like, hey, if that dude gets to like 220 and he still remains that kind of like dynamic player, okay, I can work with that. Like, I can work with that because he does look lean. Like, you see that. You're like, okay, man, like I need it. I need it a little bit better. But like, he's got that confident swagger to him when he's on. And add a little bit more size, man. Yeah.
I mean, you look at, the top 2 that we're talking about for this year going in, Cam and Shedeur Sanders. Cam is a QB that the play's never dead. He'll scramble behind the line of scrimmage until he can bomb it, and then sometimes that turns into a turnover-worthy play. Shedeur Sanders will be behind the line of scrimmage, and he will scramble until it's a 20-yard sack sort of thing, and he'll do that and do it that way, and that's their 2 flaws. So it's kind of nice to see Sam Levitt be more of a professional and understand the positive and the negatives out of those situations, and I think he makes those decisions correctly most of the time, and that's what I do love about him. Yeah. All right, Jacob, do you want to jump into LaNorris Sellers?
Yeah, let's do that.
I believe Josh said he's going to be a top 5. Yeah, did I see that? Yep. All right, sell it, Jacob.
Okay. Oh yeah, I did a Jackson Dart pun yesterday that I was particularly proud of. It's like dart throw, and I always I love a good pun. Sellers is a dude that I absolutely did not see coming. Like, did not see him coming this year. Like, I did not think I would like him as much as I did. And then I went back and, that South Carolina team, I would have loved to have seen them make the playoffs just because that defense was great. But Sellers just got so much better as the year went on. And it's just like, he's what, like 19? Like, he's real young still. So, like, which is awesome to see, when you see a guy like make these strides at this, it's like, oh, okay. I think he's got, I think the arm is there. I think it's a very good arm, a plus arm. I think I like the zip that he puts on there when he needs to put the zip on there. We've been talking about this play, so I'll highlight it again. If you want to watch how you're supposed to throw a slant, watch Sellers throw a slant. Zip it in there, but put it in a place where the guy can keep going and making a play. Obviously, I completely lost my point where I was. Oh my goodness. But anyway, yeah, he made such important strides this year that I just thought was really impressive. I think the combination of the size and athleticism and arm, it's a special blend if he can put it all together consistently and make a few more strides. He's another guy I think is a gamer. Like, I think this dude, his mentality and the way he plays the game, and he was willing to go out and make mistakes and learn from mistakes. Like, I don't feel like he was the guy that was like, hey, if I'm going to go throw this interception here in a couple of drives, I'm going to try the same thing and see if I get a different result. I don't really think you saw that a lot with him, which is kind of fun and enjoyable. I like that. Bill's got a comp for Dante Culpepper.
Yeah.
On LaNorris Sellers. I like that. That. He's fun. He's just fun. Got a big arm. Looks like a modern quarterback. Can get the ball out of his hands at a good rate. Some of the mechanics need a little bit cleaned up. Some of the technical side that you can coach. But, I think he's really fun.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, he's got a super quick release. But then with that release, he can kind of throw it in most positions, sidearm, above, and stuff like that. So he has that ability to throw under pressure sort of thing, throw it with his sidearm and things along those lines. But, I mean, he kind of nailed it with him being 19 years old, being very young. As you can see, his flaws are just still from learning the game, figuring it out, and then just growing into that position. He's got 15 big-time throws, 19 turnover-worthy plays, right? So he's just learning. And those turnover-worthy plays, you're right, he learns from. But he's making those throws, and then he's trying to figure out where he's at sort of thing. He's got a good head on his shoulders to figure it out, and that he is a true bruiser. I mean, he has 4 yards after the contact for a quarterback, which is insane. Archie's got 7, but he didn't play that much, so we're taking the little amount of rushing snaps he had. But, LaNorris Sellers is running all the time with 852 rushing yards with 7 touchdowns. So that's impressive that he can do that. He's 242 pounds I believe he's 6'2" or 6'3". So he's got a good frame on him, which I love. And that allows him, once he understands the game more, is to operate in the pocket and be able to evade defenders and then keep going. His average time to throw this year was 3.3, so he had a lot of time to throw, but then he ended up getting 31 sacks on 162 pressures. So that's about 20% pressure to sack percentage. But that means he's still kind of learning and figuring out the defenses and going from there. But with that being said, is his pocket presence, and if he can get down his short and intermediate throws, he kind of reminds me of a little bit of Houston Texans Deshaun Watson when Deshaun Watson was good, because he has that ability. He has that ability to shed that blocker and then keep his eyes down the field and throw it, sort of thing. I was watching, I believe, the Texas A&M game the other day, and I think the second snap was pretty much almost carbon copy of Deshaun Watson in the Bills-Houston Texans playoff game, where a defender was full speed coming at him, grabbed him by both shoulders, and he just stood there and took it. And the defender went flying off the screen while he was just like, okay, I'm going to run to the right and make a throw. Like that was NFL caliber. Very impressive what he can do there. So as long as he can get his accuracy and his processing better, he gives me a lot of Deshaun Watson vibes. Good Deshaun Watson vibes.
I do like the Deshaun Watson comp because I saw that Texas A&M game live.
Yeah.
Was that the game he got hurt in?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do we have injury concerns, or if a quarterback misses a couple of games, we don't knock him for that this early in his career?
Yeah. Did we mention LaNorris Sellers in the 2027 option? Because I do believe he could be a 2027 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because I thought this was his true freshman year or just his first year starting?
I think his first year starting.
Yeah, I think it was. I have it as his first year starting. This year.
So, Randall, like I know that you know Will, right? Because we podcasted with Accidental Zen before. I remember watching the South Carolina Texas A&M game, and I'm texting Will like, "Have you seen Sellers play before? He's pretty special." And he was in like start 1 or 2 when I was texting him.
Yep. So. Yeah, I that was that game. Watching him when he was playing was kind of my like just as Josh is saying top 5. That game is a good evidence of what he can be for sure.
And that was one of his first starts. That's not just a good game, but that was one of his first starts.
100%.
Well, you keep in mind, I think he only played in one game last year. I think he played in 1 game. So in 23, I believe that's what I had.
Yep. Yep. And only had 4 attempts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you haven't seen LaNorris Sellers play, I would say out of everybody on this list, that would be a name to become familiar with, because when he does go into the draft, everybody's going to be talking about him, and you can say that you saw him in college.
100%. Yeah. All right.
Fun tape.
Oh, very fun tape. Jacob, if it's all right with you, I'll talk about Taylor Green to start.
Yeah, by all means. I did not get to a lot of his, so I don't have much on him, so it's all yours.
Perfect. I'm about 5 minutes from the campus, so I've seen him twice. I saw him twice live this year. But yes, okay, so we're going to talk about Taylor Green and how I have him as the 8 on that list because I'm biased. But then I'll just talk you into it.
Okay. That's fine. Let's do it.
Just like Nico, he's got a big size, but he's also got some more weight on him. 6'6", 230, big guy. Before he went to Arkansas last year, which he'll be the starting quarterback next year, which we did get Nico's little brother as a backup, by the way, as a freshman. So Nico's little brother will be the backup to Taylor Green. But enough about that. But so Taylor Green, he was at Boise State before he went to Arkansas. Boise State did not do him any favors at all, to be honest, as a quarterback to process, to learn. Basically, they just used him as a running back in that quarterback mode, and he didn't get to learn as a passer. So this year, I believe, is truly his first year to learn as a quarterback, and then next year he's going to take a big step. He was in a system that was friendly with Andrew Armstrong and stuff like that to throw outside the numbers and then kind of do his rushing ability. But there was a lot of times where kind of the scheme got away from him and the coaching kind of was a little bit up and down. So his stats, like 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, it's hard to gauge because he's had a lot of bad games, but then he had a lot of good games. So it's a very raw year to look at, but based on his size and his traits is where he has the ability to jump exponentially into year 2 and become that high-end quarterback, potentially top 5, but at least top 7 in my head. He had great games, playing against Ole Miss. We were up by 14 points in the first half, and then he kind of crumbled. So when you see those first half highs, they can come with a second half low, and he just kind of has to coach himself out of that. His top 2 things that he needs to work on is his footwork. He dances in the pocket, which hopefully he can learn that on the outside. Cannot dance in the pocket, and then he just has to learn his pre-snap processing. If he learns his pre-snap processing, he'll know, man in zone, when he should take off and run and when he shouldn't, sort of thing. Sometimes he forces runs because he's 6'6", 230. If he figures out what defense they're in pre-snap, then he can at least adjust and pick and choose when he needs to run, and he'd be a more efficient runner. A little bit of ball security issues. he had our offensive line wasn't great, so he had 168 pressures on the year, but only accounted for 21 sacks. So he is a bruiser that can get out of that pocket. I just see the high upside with him. I know that I've talked to Bill about Taylon Green. I think Taylon Green's pretty high on him as well, especially coming back. So I appreciate him agreeing with me on that one. But he is your typical 6'6", dual threat quarterback. So if he puts it all together, NFL teams in 2026 are going to be looking at him hot. First rounder based on size and traits and being able to coach him up.
Here's the thing. Anytime you're on Bruce Feldman's freak list, you've got my attention. So, because I'm that guy that's like there's this debate going on in Cleveland right now about they don't need an edge rusher. Why would they take Abdul Carter at 2? And it's like, because he's a special freak.
100%.
Like, I don't care what you think about, he might not be good against the run. Okay, that's fine. I don't. And so when I see players of that mantra, I'm like, man, I would love to just see what I can do with this. And just kind of like, this is a shiny toy. This is the part of the excerpt from Bruce Feldman's freak list. I was looking this up earlier. He's 6'6", 230 pounds, and he almost hit 23 miles per hour on the GPS. It was at 23 at 230 and 6'6". And in high school, he had a 43-foot 5-inch triple jump.
Yeah, that's insane.
Okay. That's yeah, man. No, I'm all aboard. It's definitely all right. You want me to? I will answer the question. Listen, Bill asked the question earlier. Who's the 1-year explosion into top 3 of the draft that comes out of nowhere? His vote's Miller Moss. I'm taking Taylon Green. That's right.
Love it. I mean, I agree. If he puts it all together, he's exactly what the NFL is looking for.
I just love those guys that it's like, hey, this guy can just do something that's just a little different.
Yep, mine's number 11 on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. There you go. All right. Well, let's jump into. We'll go Miller Moss, and then Jim, you want to jump in with with Billy Edwards? But yeah, Miller Moss. I really like Miller Moss. Who talked about Miller Moss? Because I do agree. Yeah. For the top 3, I love Miller Moss. The way he plays, 6'2", 205. 2,500 yards. Got 2-1 on 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He averages 40 throws a game. So USC makes him throw. I mean, typically with all quarterbacks at USC, he has an under 8% pressure to sack ratio, which is insane. 113 pressures, only getting 9 sacks. Love that. And I think he's a very sound pocket passer that I really, truly love that going into the NFL can work out very well. His mechanics are good. His footwork's solid. His release is on point, delivers the ball quickly, keeps his eyes down the field. When you're watching him kind of work in the pocket, he gives me Joe Burrow vibes to where he's keeping composure, keeping 2 hands on the ball when he needs to kind of move around, moving those shoulders. And then when he gets it, he resets and delivers sort of thing. So those mechanics are very clean, and I think that those are NFL-ready mechanics. He does really need to be a better decision maker in deep shots. He's got 4 interceptions on those deep shots with a total out of those 9. So those big throws, sometimes he doesn't see the safety creeping over, and he's just got to watch that safety once in a while to make sure that he's not getting caught in kind of that blind side. Anticipate the zone coverage. He can throw it on the needle sometimes, but sometimes he shouldn't force it, kind of what Nuss does as well. Sort of thing, don't force it if you can't see it. So that processing will help him be a better quarterback, but those mechanics are top-notch in my opinion, and as long as he kind of gets more experience, I think he can move up into those top 3.
Yeah, he's definitely it's definitely the same things you said, like those turnovers, man, like I know you've got the arm talent. Like I know it's there, I know I see it, but like you got to know you can't make that throw. Like that's the biggest thing. It's like you got to know not to try certain ones. But yeah, man, I said it about Nuss. play more football, and I think that's fine. I think that see more coverages, see defenses try to confuse you, and just go to battle and do these things, and you'll be better. Like, I love the way he navigates the pocket. Like, I think just the overall pocket awareness and stuff, like, that's the thing that kills me with Shedeur. Like, the biggest thing that kills me with him is, like, dude, why did it go from 1st and goal to out of field goal range? Like, I don't see those issues with Miller Moss. Like, he's going to turn the ball over a lot more than Shedeur is, but, like, it's just like some of that stuff that where he kind of knows how to follow some of the intricacies of quarterback play. And some of it is just that he has this raw talent, and it's just like, as he kind of develops a little bit more and just reads coverages a little bit better and just sees more things, it's like, yeah, he's got the talent, man. Another guy that's tough as nails. And it's like, and if you're going to throw the ball 40 times a game when you're kind of a young guy like that, or it's like, okay, so you understand. Understand.
I do love it. I mean, his pocket presence and his footwork in the pocket is just, it's fun to watch. It's probably boring for a lot of people, but just watching him kind of be surgical in that pocket and the way he can secure the ball while he does that is NFL caliber.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry, I was reading a text message. Yes.
All right, Jim, hit us with Billy Edwards. Tell me what you know.
So Billy Edwards Jr., he played at Maryland last year, and that was his first year starting. And now he is gone into the portal, and he will be at Wisconsin in 2025. So I discovered Edwards when I was watching Ty Felton. Right? Yeah. Ty Felton's leading the Big Ten in receiving. At least he was for, let's say, the first half of the year. Okay, and then you have to figure out, okay, well, who's throwing him all the passes? Is he draft eligible or not? So I like Edwards, and I'm not somebody that I don't like sit there and grind tape. This is just me watching games with an eye test. He's a gamer. Maryland didn't have a good year, but I would like to think that Wisconsin has generally better teams than Maryland does year in, year out. Mm-hmm. So implying that who's going to move really high on the list or surprise, it's the quarterback with there's not a lot of pedigree with Edwards, right? Like we have basically one season of starting on him, and he was mediocre. I don't want to make him sound like he's great. He was mediocre, and that Maryland team, if Edwards played well, they won. Mm-hmm. Right? But it was like they didn't have a lot.
No,
didn't have a lot. So
you're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at just quick raw stats, his adjusted completion percentage was 73.4%, so that looked good. 2.2% of his throws were turnover-worthy plays, so that's mega low. And then he only has a 12.4 pressure to sack ratio and his average time to throw 2.35 seconds. So he didn't have a lot of time to throw, and he avoided those sacks at 12.4%. That is impressive.
Yeah. So Randall and Jacob sent me the top 10 list, and I added 11 and 12. Yeah. So when we were getting ready for the podcast, they realized that there were two more guys on the list they had. Yeah. But one of the things that I like in the bottom two quarterbacks is they get rid of the ball on time.
Yes.
Right. So that you said average time to throw, you said was 2.35.
2.35, yeah.
And that's incredibly fast. I didn't know it was that fast. I knew he got rid of the ball efficiently. I did not know it was that fast. But to compare that, Caleb Williams went number 1 overall, and I believe his average time to throw last year was 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yep. Right? And NFL quarterbacks, it's usually somewhere between 2.2 and 2.7.
Yep. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I like a quarterback that gets rid of the ball on time. And Edwards is 6'4", 219. So he's got prototypical size.
Yep. That will be a lot of fun. Good call. Very good call.
So at minimum, I'm keeping my eye on him. Like I'm putting him there to say that I think he gets drafted next year, and I think he has what you look for. Whether or not, to Jacob's point, whether or not he pulls it all together really depends on how high he goes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right? Are you drafting him because of traits, or are you drafting him because you've seen him put it all together? Kind of thing. And then,
absolutely.
And I think for McCord, it's something similar. So I was watching McCord because I wanted to watch Gadsden. Right. And then I said, okay. And then, I discovered, McCord was at Ohio State, transferred to Syracuse. Syracuse had one of their best seasons in about 30 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was McCord.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know what's crazy about that when you look at McCord? Like, for one, by the way, 2.41 seconds time to throw, which was 10th. That was 10th. McCord did this in a season in which he played a game where he threw 5 pick sixes.
Yeah, we gotta Men in Black pen that game.
That's the Quinyon.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Quinyon Mitchell wasn't the corner, right?
No, not this time. No, but to look at what he did, and he threw 12 interceptions. Last year he only had 6 at Ohio State, but he threw for 4,700 yards. His adjusted completion percentage was 75%. And it's like, I will give him credit. I was very happy when he left Ohio State. I was not a big fan of what he did last year. He's got the arm, but like the reading the defenses and and some of the mental aspects of it, it just wasn't there for him. And then when he threw 5 pick sixes, I'm like, well, he's going to fall apart, because if I threw 5 pick sixes, I would never throw another touchdown.
Yeah.
Like I would never throw. So I'm glad you brought it up, because I wanted to give him credit. That talks about mental fortitude and the maturity and the progression that he has made, that he had a game like that. And he was just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep slinging it.
Yeah, credit to Fran Brown too. Fran Brown is a great personality, recruiter. Was a recruiter from Georgia, and I think Fran Brown, when he got Kyle McCord, gave him that confidence and that ego in Syracuse for him to be able to do that. Because he was probably down and out when Ohio State didn't want him back and things like that. And not for nothing, but Ohio State to Syracuse is a big jump, especially Jim, when you mentioned it's been 30. Donovan McNabb is the greatest quarterback to come out since maybe Kyle McCord. So now it's gonna be Kyle McCord after that. So when it comes down to it, Fran Brown gave him that confidence and been like, no, we chose you to be here. You do your thing, and he did it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, so we would have to think of, and I know that Bill likes to ask the question, does transferring make you rate the player lower or higher? He basically had to bet on himself, because if Ryan Day said, you have to compete with Will Howard, but we're not promising you anything, is it better for the quarterback to go where they have a high probability of starting? Or is it better for the quarterback to do what Nussmeier did, which is sit behind a Heisman Trophy win? Wait, because didn't Jaden – no,
yeah.
He didn't. Nussmeier wasn't behind Williams. Nussmeier was behind Jaden Daniels, though, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is it better to do what Arch Manning or Nussmeier did and sit behind somebody? Or is it better to bet on yourself like McCord? And my advice would be, as you're a quarterback, go somewhere where you play.
Play as many games as possible in college,
100%.
Because the NFL does not develop quarterbacks anymore.
Right.
Exactly. And then, Kyle McCord, as we talked about for his confirmation going back to school, this could have been his last year. So I'm glad that he found a spot where he was an automatic starter, because if he didn't gain that next eligibility, there was a chance that, he wouldn't have played probably wouldn't have played at Ohio State, and it would have been stuck and have no stock at all.
Yep. So, and to Randall's point, and then Bill dropped it into the comments. So So there was an issue where McCord went into a game when he was a backup at Ohio State that prevented him from taking a red shirt that year.
Yeah.
Correct.
So he's appealing that so that he can get one more year at Syracuse. If he's in this draft class, according to Newt, he's QB5. Right. And that's basically the upside. So and I've, listened to Newt and Owen give scouting reports. I've listened to so many people give scouting reports. And Newt tends to give a lot of credit if you have upside, but not everybody grades players that way. McCord's ceiling to me is actually higher than Shedeur Sanders.
He's got more arm talent.
Definitely has more arm talent.
Right. There's more there, I think, to work with McCord. You just haven't seen it consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I would still think Shedeur is, but I do think that Kyle McCord can be more moldable in the NFL. So with the right coach and the right system, he can work possibly better. And then Shedeur's flaws are major NFL flaws that are difficult to coach out of, like we talked about the sacks and things like that. Like your brain doesn't flip when you're running around and scrambling in the back. You really got to work hard to get that out. So I get the sentiment, and I agree. I still would probably take Shedeur in the draft if that were the case.
And that's why I think going back is the right call for McCord.
100%.
And I believe you'd have to check my coaching tree, but there is an offensive coach at Syracuse. I believe it's the offensive coordinator that came from Brian Daboll and the New York Giants. So there is a Giants connection at Syracuse.
Ooh, very cool. Makes sense.
So if McCord is in the draft and you see the Giants take him in the round 2 or 3, there's a connection between his current offensive coordinator, I believe, was a former coach on Brian Daboll's staff with the Giants.
I would like that. I would like that plan better than the Giants taking a quarterback in the first round.
Do you know? That actually kind of makes sense because sometimes when you're doing some mock draft simulators, they can get really weird. And I did a trade down for the Browns and swapped with the Raiders. I was just running through some scenarios, and the simulator had McCord go 4th overall, which is not happening. But it makes sense why that happened in the simulator because there's a connection there that I didn't realize. I can see how that kind of snuck in there. But because I don't know what the Giants are going to do. That's going to be fascinating.
Up to Daboll.
Yes, I am looking up the Syracuse coaches.
It's we will
right now to see if I can call out which specific coach I was referring to.
Bill already got it.
Okay, there we go. Bill, Jeff Dixon, Syracuse offensive coordinator, was the Giants running backs coach. Thank you, Bill. You did that faster than I did. So thank you. But talking and typing is an occupational hazard for me.
Yeah.
Cool. So do you guys have any anything you want to add to this discussion on future quarterbacks?
Yeah.
If summarize it at all. Yeah.
Sure, I'm going to stack it up as from best to worst and tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
In QB years, number 1, 2027. Number 2, 2026. Number 3, 2025. Does anybody object to that?
No.
I would even say number 3 is 2024 and number 4 is 2025.
Yes. Yep. Not to absolutely SHIT the whole entire class this year because this class is a lot of fun. But yes, I would say that's accurate.
The class this year is a lot of dart throws. They can be guys. That's why I get a little bit I get a little apprehensive when people it's a garbage class. I just think it's weak at the top.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, it's weak at the top because like there's a lot of guys that are like that can be guys, but yeah, that's accurate.
But okay, so Bill has a comment saying he said he put 2026 before 2027. And my question for Bill, since you're still on there, would be, what do you have confidence in Dylan Raiola? Because I believe in 2027 Raiola will come out, and I think that adds a spark to 2027 with Arch and Nico.
Yeah.
And that's why I have 2027 in front of 2026.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But maybe Bill sees something in Dylan. I know he's hopefully typing, but
Oh, he is. There ain't nobody that grinds it more.
Okay, I'm gonna drop a couple more teams. So I'm reading on Jeff Nixon right now. This is a good read.
Yeah.
He has sent numerous players to the San Francisco 49ers. He coached Jalen Hurd, Denzel Mims.
Oh, yeah.
Tyquan Thornton.
Oh.
And he was a tight ends coach for the 49ers 2011 to 2015.
Wait, who is this? I'm sorry. Dixon?
So this is Jeff Nixon, who is the offensive coordinator at Syracuse.
Oh, nice.
I'm pointing
Tyquan
out his
Thornton?
NFL ties.
Yeah.
Because
Tyquan
coaches
Thornton?
talk to each other.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Right? Like if
Denzel
you're
Mims.
on the pro staff. So if somebody on San Francisco
Right.
is communicating with Syracuse, you imagine seeing McCord in a Shanahan offense. Is that Brock Purdy 2.0?
Yeah,
he's more gifted than he's more gifted than Purdy.
That's where I'm going with that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I like
do you really think that they're not going to extend Brock Purdy? I'd feel so bad for that kid. He's I know. This is not based on talent or who he is, sort of thing. I'm just saying he's living in San Francisco on peanuts, and he took him to a Super Bowl. I'd hate for him not to get a paycheck.
Yeah, I'll pay him.
Yeah.
But seriously,
Cleveland.
When you, that's probably a discussion for another day. But I look at this as the same situation the Giants were in with Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Let him for a year, but don't commit to him for 6.
Well, that'd be the question, because now he's only in year 3. So are you reworking it, or are you extending it one more year so then you have him? Because if you don't give him that means then you're running into his 4th year. So you're not extending him this offseason, but you're extending him the next offseason, correct? Or giving him a 1 year next.
I would franchise him. I would do the Kirk Cousins thing.
Yeah.
Especially because he's gotten hurt twice, right? So 2 out of his 3 years, he's missed a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And decent. You miss 3 or 4 games because of a shoulder that you throw with or something like that. That's why I pause.
That's fair, because the shoulder was pretty big, and you can tell that it took him a little bit to get back too, because I think his first game back was against the Bills, and albeit it was snowing and cold, he didn't look like he could throw the ball past 15 yards anyways.
Yep. But at the same time, if you're Shanahan and you're on the hot seat, of course you extend him, because if you get fired, the contract becomes somebody else's problem.
Right. Right.
Cool.
But yeah, that's for another day, I guess.
Yeah. We can keep going, but let's take a minute. Jacob, you want to tell everybody kind of who you are, how they can find your content?
It's not just the mustache, folks, but there is a lot of mustache. It's in my mouth, and I don't know how to handle it. You can find me most of my draft content for the Orange and Brown Report at theobr.com. Mock Draft Monday. It's a 7-round Browns mock draft, but that's every Monday for the remainder until the draft takes place. I'll be doing that over there. On youtube.com/at Orange and Brown Report, do some draft videos over there. Bill will be with me this week to talk about some draft crushes that we have for the Browns and some things. So most of my draft content geared towards that, but I like to evaluate those prospects just as prospects. They're guys that the Browns should be interested in, but it's definitely more in depth than just, that sort of thing. So you can see all that stuff over there. And if you care about the Browns, I do have a Browns podcast on Tuesdays. It's youtube.com/@barkingbrowns, the Barking Browns. So you can check that out. And I'm on Roachism 13 on the X app thing. Magic.
Fantastic. Randall.
At Randall Slifer, you can find all my content on Twitter or Blue Sky, the same as Blue Sky on there, and just getting ready, excited for NFL playoffs. Bills are going to the Super Bowl and winning it finally, and then after that, then we'll be talking Buffalo in that off season. Getting excited for Friday drafts, doing draft professor mock drafts, get those lines up, look at that depth. Always my favorite time of the year.
This is definitely a fun and busy time. I am amazed at how fast this time of year is flying by at this point. So
bittersweet.
So this channel has draft content every day. So if you are new to this podcast, we have different people coming at you every day. So tomorrow it's Newt Owen, special guest Bill Sparks, and they're going to be going over the top 5 quarterbacks in this year's draft. And that's all part of the Draft Professor's Quarterbacks Week. And then Friday, we'll be going over the rest of the quarterbacks. So the 5 quarterbacks tomorrow are Ward, Sanders, Milroe, Dart, and we are going to cover Kyle McCord in detail, assuming he's coming out. So Kyle McCord got covered on both nights, kind of thing. And then to Randall's comment, every Friday starting next week is going to be some type of mock draft on the channel. So it might be a 32 GM mock draft. That's what we're putting together now. So it's going to be a 3-round, 32-person mock draft that we're going to be doing on Friday night. That would be the 16th, 17th. There we go. Today's Wednesday. So that'll be on the 17th. I also want to remind you that Randall and Jacob will be back here next Wednesday. And you guys are doing the last group of tight ends, correct?
Yeah.
So that'll be correct. Tight end. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. Special guest too, right?
Yeah. And we have a special guest. I believe his name is Travis. He hasn't been on the channel yet. But he's going to come on, talk tight ends with Jacob, Randall, myself. So we'll do, I think, the last 6 tight ends that we have to cover. And then we'll do a tight end big board for all tight ends that are round 5 or better.
Excited.
Kind of thing. So give at NFL Draft Fanatic a follow. No, I am Fanatic. That's the same on YouTube as it is on X. All the podcasts are broadcast on that channel. And some of them are broadcast on other channels too. But if you follow at NFL Draft Fanatic, you will get draft content every day. You can find every single podcaster at the Draft Professor by coming to one spot, and then they're all connected. So we appreciate everybody that is watching. We can clearly see that there's interest in this. If there's something you want us to talk about with a daily draft podcast, we can probably find a way. Right? Like we have an Ohio, like here would be 2 examples. We have an Ohio State podcaster that wants us to just talk about every Ohio State player in the draft.
Very possible. Only team
right?
could. Yeah.
Jacob, what you and I are each, 150 miles from Columbus, just in different directions.
Yeah.
So, like we can do stuff like that. So if you're listening and you're like, hey, I want you to cover this, we can probably find a podcast to do it on once.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Randall, Jacob, it's great to have you back. Happy New Year. It's like 7 days or 8 days after the year started, but it's good to see you guys again.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So, on behalf of everybody at Draft Professor, we're going to sign off right now. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast brought to you by the Draft Professor. Please follow the Draft Professor on YouTube, X, and Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. If you have a moment, try using some of the Draft Professor mock draft functionality, including a first-round challenge, a second-round challenge, rank players, and draft a team. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on our daily draft podcast tomorrow.